this time, I'd like to call to order the Muskegon County Board of Commission Transportation Committee, April 15th, 2021. It is 4:28. And I'm calling this meeting to order. At this time, I would request a roll call vote with location.
Commissioner Sear.
Here, Twin Lake, Michigan.
Commissioner Hovey Wright.
Here, City of Muskegon.
Commissioner Hughes.
Here, Muskegon Township, Michigan.
Commissioner Laring.
Here, Muskegon County Hall of Justice for everyone else.
Commissioner Nash.
Here, City of Muskegon.
Commissioner Pago.
Here, Muskegon County Hall of Justice.
Chairman Skolnick.
Here, City of Norton Shores, protecting myself and the public from the COVID virus.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Here.
And Commissioner Brown.
Here at City of Muskegon Hall of Justice in another room from everyone else. So thank you. Okay. We have the roll call. We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is item number 3, approval of the minutes of March 11th, 2021 committee report. I would need so moved and support. And I need a roll call vote to approve those minutes. And we don't need your location. So
I heard Commissioner Hughes, but I did not hear who the other motion.
Commissioner Nash.
Thank
was it
you.
Nat? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hovey Wright.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Laring.
Yes.
Commissioner Nash.
Yes.
Commissioner Pago.
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Sear.
Yes.
And Commissioner Brown.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Item number 4, this is for informational item to be filed. And it was a transit operations report, March 2021. I don't know if everyone had a chance to review this. At this time, I'm just asking this to be filed. So thank you very much. Yes, Marcia. Yes.
Yeah, I just have a question. I see that Mr. Coons is on the call. And I noticed that in 2021, there was a decrease in use of the bus system and wondered if Mr. Coons could explain.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coons, would you give some explanation to that question for Commissioner Hovey Wright? Can you address that?
So on this report, we are showing you a comparison of March 2021 versus March of 2020. During March of 2020, we were still operating a full pre-COVID services as well as pre-system change services up until March 23rd. So this will be the last month where you'll really see a comparison to a pre-COVID number.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So this would be filed, and good question. And this was for everyone's reading enjoyment. Item number 5, public comment on an agenda item. At this point, on any agenda items stated or shown, do we have any public comment? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much. Next, item number 6, we have 2 items for consideration. Item for consideration number 1 is TR 27/04-17.
21.
We have more than
TR 21.
we have 2. We have 2. Okay. Well, anyways, the first one, 21/04-17, to approve the staff recommendation to award Bergman Associates the contract to perform architectural and engineering services for the airport terminal roof replacement. Any question? Need a motion and support?
So moved.
So I have a motion and support. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Mr. Brown, I have just a question on this. I know the roof, there was a bad leak towards the end of the winter, but I think it was due to an ice backup. Has anyone looked at that building, or is that to determine it actually does need a roof as opposed to backup?
Yes.
I mean, different.
I'm going to defer that question to Mr. Lukens. Could you address that please?
Yes, Bob Lukens, Community Development Director. Yes, Commissioner, the roof has been looked at and you are correct. It was an ice backup in one of the drains, actually out in a nearby parking area, backed up the drain that drained the roof. That was routed out or roto-rooted out and opened up, and the water that had collected on the roof was dispersed immediately. There are still other issues with the roof. It's been on there since 1995. It's past its useful life, and it does leak in numerous different spots. So it's time for a new roof, and we went out for RFQ for qualified firms that could handle the design and the engineering of the roof, because there are skylights on the roof that are losing their seal, and some of them are beginning to break. And the design of the skylights is such that the glass is a curved glass that's very, very expensive to replace. So we're looking at a number of different possibilities for the new roof, be it a flat roof or be it a, some other new type of skylight design. And then there's another option of potentially just removing the skylights and putting some type of small roofing material on top of that. But we did have 13 firms that presented qualifications for this project. We narrowed it. We reviewed all of the qualifications proposals and then narrowed it down to the top 3 firms. We interviewed those top 3 firms and then narrowed it down to the top 2 firms that were tied after rescoring the second time. After the interviews, we rescored everything. So when we got those 2 firms, when we finalized the 2 firms, we asked for the cost proposals, which is the third part of the request for qualifications project or process. And we received the cost proposal from Bergman Associates and Fishbeck, the other top rated design and engineering firm, presented a late proposal. So that was disqualified. The price that Bergman has quoted us is a reasonable price, and staff recommends that we move forward with Bergman Associates as the design and engineering firm for the roof.
Thank you, Mr. Lukens. Was some of the my understanding that the grant that we would be receiving for airport improvement, is that where that's coming from for the upgrades?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be from CARES Act funding, and then there's additional funding that's available for the roof construction, actually.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hovey Wright, you had a question,
Yes,
please.
just a brief question. Mr. Lukens, I noticed that Bergman was the only vendor that had a price cost for the proposal. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, this is a RFQU, so it's a request for qualifications. We base the choice on the qualifications of the firms, and then they're asked for a cost proposal.
So you really couldn't compare costs?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And this- I'm sorry,
Commissioner-
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Sear, I'm sorry, who?
Mr. Lukens, is this, so this is for basically design and engineering only, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So they would put that, once they put the package out, then it would be rebid for the actual construction, but that was an estimate, I believe, the number that you saw there, which is that true? So.
The cost proposal there is for the design and engineering for the roof.
Okay.
$46,779.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns at this time? Okay, Mr. Lukens, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think you're going to be up next here. So I need a roll call vote.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
yes,
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins, Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes. Thank you very much. Next item for consideration, TR 21//04-18. To authorize the staff to participate in discussions of a transit-related parking facility project in downtown Muskegon to pursue federal and state transit capital grant funding to support the transit portions of such a project and to prepare a partnership agreement for board consideration if transit project funded is awarded for such a development. I need a motion and support for this. Do we have a support?
I'll support Skolnick.
Thank you. We have that. So I motion support. Any questions, comments, or concerns in regard to this item for consideration?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have some questions on that.
Yes, Commissioner Hughes. Thank you.
This is a parking facility for a bus station that only goes locally. If you've got a car, you really don't need the bus. So I don't see how this would be something that would be beneficial for us to pay for.
Mr. Lukens, if you're still on, would you like to discuss that or answer that question?
Yes, Bob Lukens, Community Development Director. I have some support here too. Mr. Jim Coons is on the line from MATS, and also Frank Peterson, the city manager of the city of Muskegon, is on the line. But every 6 years, Commissioner, the US Congress presents legislation for the transportation programs. That authorization ends this fall on September 30th at the end of the fiscal year. And congressional members now have the opportunity to present projects. This project has been, in discussion for many years in Muskegon. Last time we had some funding available or kind of set aside for a parking ramp, but that never came into fruition at that time. And the funding was redirected to construct the Herman Ivory Terminal. Now with the development in downtown Muskegon and the surrounding area, we're seeing a lot more traffic in the area. And there has been, interest in reviving the parking ramp discussion. So this project would be, what we're looking at is a joint development project. And we've had some initial discussions with the city of Muskegon, but these were very preliminary discussions. We have not spoken with the FTA about this yet, but there were preliminary discussions that would place the facility in the downtown area. It would have retail and residential elements to the project in addition to the parking ramp. The parking ramp could, the FTA or the transit system, I should say, has to be, has to have stake in this project and has to realize some revenues and some benefit from this project. So what could potentially happen as we move forward, and again, we're still in the discussion stages, is that, this joint development project would provide opportunity for, say, residential. What we could do through the federal grant would be to allow parking spaces to be leased by the private developer that was developing the residential portion of the project that would go towards funding transit, either MATS or a potential future transit authority. So any revenues derived from the project, either retail revenues or retail residential type revenues or parking revenues themselves a portion of those revenues would have to go towards funding or supporting transit within Muskegon County. And that could be not only the MATS system itself, but also a future authority. As you know, now we're looking at the potential of an authority between Muskegon County and Northern Ottawa County. So this could be potentially a way to fund some of those activities and fund the operation of the authority.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Luke. And this is for us to move forward in pursuing this funding, correct? So this is.
Yes, and again, it's just opening discussions between the city and the county, and then we would bring something forward to our U.S. Congressman Huizinga, to present. And if we did receive the funding, we'd kick it up a notch there.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, my
I have another
comment is to, that we need some parking. Commissioner Hughes, I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut, was that you?
Yes, would that make us landlords? I mean, is that what you're saying? That now we will become landlords of this building?
Not necessarily. Like, I know in the past, some funding was used, transit funding was used for renovation of the depot here, my office. And it is considered a transit museum, and we have transit displays here.
Right.
And we have bus stops out. We have a bus stop out in front, and it's used for meetings, sometimes for transit. So these, we're not landlords per se, but any revenues derived from this project could be used to help fund either the transit system or, as I said, a potential new authority.
But if you're going to build a building that you lease out, who's going to be the landlord? Somebody's got to.
The private developer.
So this is essentially to help a private developer put up a building.
Not necessarily. I mean, these are all details that would have to be worked out, but it would be a joint partnership. So it would be a partnership between the county, the city, and a private developer.
Public-private. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. Commissioner Hovey Wright, please, you have the floor.
Yes, first of all, I would assume that we can justify the need for more parking, given that the convention center is across the street from the location that I understand would be used across from the Walker or across from the convention center. But the thing that's somewhat concerning is that parking lot is used for a lot of people that go to the Frauenthal, people that go to the downtown, people that use the CIO hall, and the Pigeon Hill and all of that. So they would now no longer have free parking. It would now be paid parking. So that might be an issue with some people in the community.
Yes, it might, for sure.
Okay. Any
But,
other? Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as cities grow, parking needs change. So, many cities have paid parking. Free parking is a luxury for sure.
Chair, I have a question.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Nash, thank you.
I guess I'm all for the parking garage. I believe it's much needed, considering the growth that we're getting downtown. I think also with the future of the casino being added, it's gonna require more demand, and I know we're gonna be doing some more building. So I think it's good that we're getting ahead of this because parking is pretty tight as it is downtown. I guess I do have a concern too with the partnership portion of it, because we're the major ones going to bring in this money to help support this parking garage. We also have a transit need that we need to have this funding for. And I think we should be trying to capitalize on this with a full garage. And the Living Center, I think, is going to squeeze that down so much. And then having another landlord in control, yes, we'll be given a portion, but I think we should be in control of that parking and transit portion of it.
Thank you.
Understood.
Mr. Lukens, just a comment and maybe clarification in my mind. At the ribbon cutting, which by the way, you did a very nice job. The comment was made about public and private money coming together and having a wonderful convention center. Would this be very similar to that? That you're going to try to infuse development downtown by working together with private and public, like the convention center? Or am I overreaching?
No, I would say you're correct. I mean, this is definitely an economic development device. I mean, we will be able to use this as an economic development stimulator in the downtown area. You know, the convention center, we've already seen the sale of a former establishment downtown, Rackets. It's going to become now Legends, and they're putting $1 million into that facility. It'll bring additional visitors into the downtown area for dining, and it will provide additional options for those that are attending conventions and events in the downtown area, not only at the convention center, but during our festivals and events. The festivals that are in the downtown area are aware that Muskegon is changing, and they are fortunately able to adjust and change with the change that's happening in downtown Muskegon. Again, I just really want to point out that we're in the introductory phase of this, and we're just bringing this to the board so that we can continue discussions if approved, and bring something back to you that will give a more complete picture of what this would look like.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I think that's why we wanted to bring it to the committee. This is great discussion, and I'm glad for the renderings. Thank you so much for doing that.
Commissioner, if I could jump in.
Yeah, Mr. Skolnick. Yeah, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Well, I know a little bit about this, and I think one of the reasons we're even in the middle of doing this is because the county has access to these funds where the city doesn't. And I don't know if I'm out of order here, but Mr. Frank Peterson, the city manager of Muskegon, is on this call. Maybe he wants to say something, because that's really, I think, where the impetus for this comes from.
Mr. Peterson, do you have any comment or would address the board? Yes.
Yeah, sure. So I think whoever asked the question, if this was really meant to be an economic development, potential project or a private public partnership, I would emphatically say, yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So the idea is we can get resources for things like a parking structure, and we can leverage that with a private sector person and convince him or her to build, affordable or semi-affordable or high-end apartments, to build retail spaces and do things like that they otherwise, if they did those on that same spot, they would displace those same parking spaces that Commissioner Hughes was talking about, and they wouldn't be replaced. So this is a way that we can make sure that we get what we need for the downtown and for the transit, and for the just a general flow of the downtown and of the community. And we can at the same time collect and direct investment into that same space. And that's why if you look at the schematics of what we envision on that site, you see it's very clear that there's, the parking area stays intact, it just gets taller. And then a private sector person has the ability to essentially build around it. And it makes for a great partnership, because it's very difficult for a private sector person to build a ramp like that, especially given the cost of living in Muskegon and what rents are probably acceptable, versus the cost to add just a ramp focused on parking. And so we think that it's a great opportunity to leverage these dollars back into the community. We're going to get one chance to do it right now. And if we're not successful or don't go after it, we're going to have 5 or 6 more years to wait before we get to ask that question again. And so we just think it's really important to kind of get on the same team and get on the same page and go put our best foot forward. And just because we were successful doesn't mean that this thing's going to appear tomorrow. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so it just makes a whole lot of sense that we start on it and we start working in earnest today for something that we see as a need in 2022, 3, 4, or 5.
Thank you. I
I
really
had a
appreciate
question.
you addressing that. Yes, Marcia.
No,
Just a quick question. Who owns that lot right now?
It's privately owned right now.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
what lot are we speaking of?
Across from the arena.
Yep. And if
Are
I
we
could
talking
point
about
out
across the West Shore?
Western Avenue.
Yeah. Oh, Western?
Mhm.
You talking about Max McKee's lot?
No.
No. Mr.
It's-
Brown, I have one other comment.
Yes, Commissioner Skolnick, please.
There was a parking ramp proposed maybe 10 years ago on the property behind the Chamber of Commerce, across the street from the Hume Building, and
Right.
sort of across from the hotel, what's now the Marriott. That project actually moved ahead pretty far. There was plans to do it. The problem with that whole thing was it depended on parking revenue to make it work. And as it moved ahead, we decided that there would not be enough revenue because there were too many places to park downtown. That's all changing now. The parking lot
Right.
is getting used up.
No, good comment. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Loring?
I've been trying to ask you a question.
Here's
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of questions. I've got a couple of questions I'm trying to ask. Ownership of this facility, who will retain ownership if the county applies for this grant would be question one. Sounds as if the location has already been picked for it. That was one of my questions that is under private ownership. Who is going to buy the property and then own the final facility? Sounds as if the developer is probably the one engaged in the city for this project. But if the county's applying for this grant, who's going to be responsible for maintenance and upkeep of this? And then who's going to retain final ownership for it? If the county's the one applying for the grant, it sounds that typically the county would retain ownership of this property.
Commissioners, if I may, this is Jim Coons.
Yes,
I just want to back up on a couple of things and try to answer Commissioner Laring's question. At this point in time, if the transit program is to be awarded any federal funding for this, the Federal Transit Administration will have to review all of the potential partnerships. There will be a requirement that the transit program retain satisfactory continuing control over the transit asset portions of this. All of those ownership questions, control questions, future benefits questions will be part of the discussions to be had. It won't be turned over, so to speak, to another party. But there will be agreements put in place to ensure that transit receives, number one, there's economic development benefit. Number two, there's transit program benefit by virtue of it being more densely developed, which is always good for transit programs. And then finally, that there will be revenues accruing to the transit program, and anybody renting space or renting parking spaces or retail spaces would be paying fair costs for that. So it really takes a federal capital grant, which the Federal Transit Administration is very interested in being development partners. But it takes that capital grant and allows the transit agency to convert some of it into operating revenues for the long term.
Okay, so I have one more
thank
question.
you. Yes.
There are a local match involved in this. Does the county tax dollars, do we have to have county tax skin in the game?
So let me, I failed to answer one other question first, which is location. And I don't know that location is determined yet. And this is one potential possibility that the city is interested in. As far as local match, what we would expect is that the Federal Transit Administration, if we are awarded the full amount that we would request, Federal Transit would provide 80% and the state of Michigan would provide the 20%. We would not expect to have to bring local transit dollars or county dollars to the program for the transit portion of the project. The potential private developer would bring assets and resources above and beyond whatever the transit program portion is.
I do have one other question if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Will
Commissioner.
we be guaranteed that the parking garage or the parking facility would be public, or are they gonna use that for the people that are gonna move in there? And if they don't, where are those people gonna park?
Well, again, the transit agency in partnership with the other partners would make all of those determinations about how best to use the space. I would expect there would be public parking involved. I mean, that's part of what would be the.
But you don't know that, correct? I mean,
Well, there have been no discussions other than to say, here's an opportunity to get this discussion started. So none of those discussions have been had yet.
but it is possible that they could end up using those for just the people that live there, not the public.
Well, I think if that were to be the case, then the transit agency would be interested in making sure that the revenue to transit is sufficient such that we, there are benefits to the community. But I can't say that it will all be private parking. That would not be the intent.
I've seen that happen before. That's why I'm concerned. I mean, you got a huge 3-story apartment building with one ramp underneath it. And it, I'm just saying that's a lot of cars that gonna need a place to park.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
this is Commissioner Wilkins, and I guess my question is directed to Mr. Coon. We had programs in the Heights at the terminal, and we were supposed to put in bathrooms and do all of this, and nothing has happened. There are no bathrooms. It looks like hell out there under those tin tops.
okay.
Yeah, so that's a different project. And that project has been, I guess, abandoned at this point in time. The downtown parking ramp discussion, again, is an opportunity to secure a project in the 6-year authorization bill for the betterment of Muskegon. That's not to say that a Muskegon Heights facility wouldn't be a good benefit as well, but that project at this point is not moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, I'm trying to find Commissioner
another
Pago.
question.
Was that?
Yeah.
Who had
Just saying, I think Commissioner Wilkins had a very valid point. She's pointing out that what we already have is not being maintained, and here we are wanting to acquire something else.
Okay, well, if that's the question, I'm sorry I missed that. The downtown Muskegon Heights Farmers Market property, we do not own or control. We just have a bus stop at that location presently. We're no longer using the market site as a shelter.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Chair, I have another
Yes,
follow-up.
yes, Commissioner.
Yes.
Yes,
Um,
Hovey.
It wasn't clear from the drawings how many floors of residence and retail and parking. Because already that location has parking. And if we're just going to replace the number of spots, that's not going to help the situation. So is this going to provide additional parking to what we already have? And how much more?
From my perspective, none of that discussion has been had yet. The drawings that you're seeing there are something that were, to my understanding, prepared prior to this discussion within the city. And so I can't speak to how this project would compare to what was drawn previously as a concept.
Really, what? Hello?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm all for the economic development portion of this. And if we could find a way, I guess my main concern is, have we seen a project similar to this with residential and parking that has developed somewhere else before that's been successful? Because right away, what I look at is as far as residential, I would be concerned as a renter with all the traffic that's going to be going in and out. And then I'm also concerned with the amount of wear and tear, fuel, gas, fumes, whatever else in my residential area. And I worry about the county having any type of liability issues with something like this going in with a parking garage and a living quarter, especially if, some type of
All right.
accident happens.
Right now, there's one, Mr. Nash, going on downtown currently. And I believe there is one across, there's a couple, but that's private, not public.
Downtown where?
Muskegon. Yeah, the one, the Leonard Building is.
No.
being
I'm not talking about one in current. I'm saying projects that have been done that are successful elsewhere.
Okay. I think the motion, the only, I'd like the great discussion. Thank you. I think the discussion right now, from what I understand, and the motion that's on for us to discuss is to start discussion of this to go for this grant. So it sounds like there's a lot of this is just a very preliminary and a good conversation.
I still didn't get an answer to my question.
Commissioner Nash, this is county administrator. The one I can think of is in Grand Rapids, the city hall in the county office.
I think
They
the
have a
county
parking
building,
garage
Yeah.
attached right to their offices.
Kent County has the parking office in parking garage inside their offices and stuff.
I guess what I'm asking, because my specific question was parking and residential. Offices are different, hotels are different, but residential is something else.
If I could, this is Frank. I would say there are probably hundreds and hundreds of examples like this all over the country. But if we want to stick close to home and you go right back down to downtown Grand Rapids, the area that they're talking about, there's I forget what they're called, the River Walk or something, but where the Varnum Rittering offices are, there's a whole tower there that's residential that's got 6 stories of parking underneath it.
Okay.
That's a good example that exists down close to us. But I would say, yeah, there are a lot of them. It's a new concept here in Muskegon because I'm telling you, it's a very expensive way to provide parking because in Muskegon the land values were such that it just was a lot easier to make a big parking lot next to it, right? But maybe in as we build it downtown, we're hoping to see less land used for parking lots and spend a little extra money to kind of get a little taller and allow more room for buildings. But I would say what we would be proposing, whether it's on this site or like Mr. Kuhn said, at one of probably 4 or 5 potential sites in the downtown that really could work for this. In all those situations, I think the parking and residential would coexist very well, and you would probably find that people really enjoy having their cars, covered and so close to them. If you've ever been into the Watermark here in Muskegon, there is parking on the first floor. You would enter it over by the coffee factory, and that whole first floor has got parking in it. And people live, there's 4 stories, I think, above it of apartments. But that would be a good example where maybe you can go down there and check it out and see how it feels and how they operate with parking and residential mixed together, and actually and retail at the same time.
Okay.
Would this be a county-owned facility?
We don't even know.
This is Mark. Yeah, I mean, my understanding of the parking garage, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, the parking garage parts, has to remain with the authority if we're at that point, or the county.
It will have to be, the asset will have to be protected from the Federal Transit Administration's perspective. How that's done in the agreement, there may be multiple ways, but I would expect the transit system would retain ownership or control in some fashion of the transit asset.
So will we be able to guarantee that will be public parking and not private parking?
I think a good example of that is you might build 3 floors that are public and 1 floor for the private. I mean, if we want to build 3 or 2, then private could build another one on top of it.
Right.
Okay, I thought that the parking was just going to be on the bottom, and then you were going to have 3 floors of apartments. That's what it looks like.
No,
that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at it closely, you'll see there's a parking garage that is behind a liner building. So the parking garage is just as tall as the main residential building. So there's essentially you could park on the 5th floor and then live on the 5th floor, for example.
That's my concern, is that the people that are gonna be living there, they're gonna be taking up the parking places. There's not gonna be any place for the public.
I would say that that actual development, when you look at it, the residential side is not very big. It's probably like 40 or 50 apartments or something like that. Like in that example there, maybe a little
Right.
bit more than that. But we're talking 500 parking spaces.
Right.
So there's a significant amount of additional parking for the general public, for people to go to the Frohenthal, the people to go to the convention center, for people to go to the arena, for people just to come downtown, and for the people to live there.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I make a motion, we call the question.
Second.
Commissioner. We have a motion and second to go, and I need a roll call vote for this item for consideration.
No,
Thank
we
you.
call them.
This is for the question.
Yeah,
Oh,
you have to vote on the calling the question, I believe.
Yes,
okay. I will need a roll call vote to closing of the question.
And it requires a 2/3 majority too, I think.
If we can just redraw the motion and just vote, we can just vote on this motion.
Okay, that's what I would, at this point, I'd like to call a vote for this motion. So do we have to rescind that other
Yep.
Commissioner
call for
Pego,
question?
would you-
and that's what my goal is, just to vote, so. if
There you
we're all-
go. Okay, let's vote.
So I'm going to take a vote for this roll call vote for this item for consideration. Thank you.
Well, make sure your motion maker is rescinding his motion.
I tried. I don't know if you hear me. Did you get that, Doug?
Yes, I've got that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, voting on number 18, Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
No.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes,
Commissioner Wilkins.
No.
I couldn't hear you, Commissioner Wilkins.
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Seer,
Yes,
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes,
Commissioner Hughes,
No,
Commissioner Brown.
Yes,
That's 7. Oh, I'm sorry, 6 yes, 3 no.
okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the any unfinished business. I don't see any, and I apologize for if I'm not scanning here or recognize you, but I do not see any. Kristen, no. Any new business to address this committee? No. Public comment. At this time, I would ask if there is any public comment for this committee, and all persons must state their name and for the record, and comment would be limited to 2 minutes for each participant. Okay, no public comment. Any final board comments?
Unfortunately, I have to have a board comment again.
Yes, Commissioner Loring, please.
Yeah, so with 2 vaccinations, I am wondering who Commissioner Skolnick is protecting himself from.
any other?
Okay, I don't know if he needs to
Any other
address
board
that at this
comments?
point. Yes.
I have a comment. I want to thank Chairman Brown for providing the reading enjoyment today by sending
Okay.
the interesting agenda out.
Okay, thank you. No, if I have any comment, I think this was addressed to it. This is, Mr. Skolnick, you were there at the ribbon cutting, and I think it was one of the comments that I had heard was us having participation with the county, the city, and private and public funds. So, this was brought up. I think there's some exciting things. If you went downtown, to use your comment, Commissioner Skolnick, many, many years ago, it's really changed from what's downtown to what currently is. And it's exciting. I've even invested my company to be downtown, and obviously invested my time and mental wellness to be a commissioner. So I appreciate all the other commissioners to to be here and be part of some of the exciting things that are going on in Muskegon and the county. So thank you for everyone. So that's my final comment. Any other, not, if not, I would ask for a
Mr.
motion to
Chair, I
adjourn.
would like to make
Yes,
one.
yes, Commissioner
Um,
Nash.
I see that we're looking at parking, and that has been a concern of mine also. Because if you look at what we have as parking downtown, with the new convention center, there's going to be a great need.
Absolutely.
And I kind of wish this partnership had went in with the convention center and the hotel at the same time, because the current hotel parking is somewhat adequate for the hotel, but it's not adequate for the convention center in the hotel.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think that we should look at as a partnership, because we're talking about bringing in, I would like to see us right now talk to MAC and think about bringing the MAC conferences in and different conferences, even maybe a NACO or something, but we've got to make sure that we have adequate parking for those,
Absolutely.
hundreds of commissioners that will be coming in to visit the city. So that's a real concern of mine. And that's why I was asking the questions that I was asking, because I think that's a big piece that we might miss out on, and we don't want to bring those big conventions here and have people running across streets all the time without
Absolutely.
any type of structure.
Right. Well, thank you. If there's any, no other final board comments?
Yes, Mr. Brown?
Yes, Commissioner Wright, please.
Yeah, I would also agree with Mr. Nash. We do need more parking, particularly with the new convention center. And the downside, of course, is that people will have to pay for parking that they're used to getting free. But I think that's the price of growth, and we are definitely growing especially in the downtown. So I'm glad that we're going to move forward with this and hopefully negotiate some benefit for the county financially.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for your comment. Any other comments?
Chairman Brown,
Yes, Commissioner Sear.
I just want to thank you for your stellar performance today.
Yeah, and Chairman Brown, I hope you're, what did you call that? Mental what?
I said I've sacrificed my mental wellness for taking this
Right.
job, so I don't.
Oh, yeah, we all
So,
did.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm vested into this big time. Anyways,
Okay.
thank you very much. I see it's 5:15. Commissioner
Good turn.
Skolnick owes me a dinner to get it passed before 6 o'clock.
When
I
get
just want
my-
to make that. Yeah, thank you. I would need a motion to adjourn.
Motion we
So
adjourn.
moved.
Moved.
Thank you very
Support.
much, everyone. Really appreciate the comments. Thank you.